What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Bush coming at you solo today to give you the first installment, the week 1 edition of Bush's Best Bets. Basically, what I'm going to be doing each week is going over my top 3 picks against the spread, my favorite over-under of the week, 5 picks for Draftkings, and 5 picks for Fanduel. So I wanted to bring you guys kind of a short form, digestible form of content that you can take action on right away. These picks against the spread, I'm personally going to be laying money down on. So, I have some skin in the game over under DraftKings, Fanduel picks. Again, I'm going to be laying money each and every week on some of these things. So you can be rest assured I've done my research. So we're going to hit the intro and then we're going to get right into this. Okay, so my top 3 picks against the spread. My first one that I'm going to be laying money down on this weekend is Vikings -3 versus the Bengals on the road. The reason I like this bet so much is because the Vikings defense last year ranked 26th in DVOA. They got a lot of pieces back, especially on the front 7. Danielle Hunter didn't play at all last year. Michael Pierce, their best run-stopping nose tackle, opted out before the season. And we have Dalvin Tomlinson coming in from the New York Giants. So this defense should be much improved. I think they're going to be able to limit the Bengals offense, especially with Joe Burrow coming back in his first game off the ACL tear. We might see a little bit of jitters out of him. I think the Vikings will be able to put up points on the other side of the ball as well. The Bengals secondary is not good. Trey Waynes, their best corner, is going to be out for this game or likely out for this game based on the practice reports I've seen. Of course, we know that William Jackson, who was their best corner last year, is now with the Washington football team. So they're going to be starting Eli Apple out there against Justin Jefferson. It's not going to end well for the Bengals secondary. Joe Burrow dropping back a ton, in my opinion, in his first game back is not a recipe for success. So the Vikings -3 is a bet that I personally like. You could always, tease that one down to -2.5 if you want that field goal advantage on the Vikings side of things. Titans -3 versus Arizona at home. Currently -110 odds, -120 was the first bet that I talked about. I don't think Kyler is going to be able to keep up with Ryan Tannehill in this Titans offense, because the Titans can beat you in so many ways, right? They can beat you on the ground with Derrick Henry. They can beat you in play action with Ryan Tannehill, A.J. Brown, and Julio Jones. I don't think Arizona has that much versatility. They only can beat you really through the air with DeAndre Hopkins as their only major weapon that they have there. And then Kyler Murray on the ground running himself. Now, could Rondale Moore contribute? Could A.J. Green contribute? Sure. I like the Titans' chances to win this one at home versus Arizona. They're only -3 favorites, which is basically a pick 'em if you discount the fact that the Titans are the team that is at home. So when you look at the biggest matchup advantage that I see for the Titans is that they have a 38% advantage, according to Pro Football Focus, in run blocking versus the Arizona Cardinals run defense. So again, when you have a big advantage in run blocking with a running back like Derrick Henry, it's probably not going to end well for the opposing team. Of course, if they're able to run the ball successfully, then the play action game is going to work. And the secondary of the Cardinals is completely decimated. I talked about it with the Bengals, but the Cardinals now no longer with Patrick Peterson as their number 1 corner, who's been there for so long. Malcolm Butler up and retired randomly right before the season started. So they really are rolling out there with Byron Murphy and Marco Wilson, who was a 7th round pick this year. So I don't think any of those guys are going to have a lot of fun guarding A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. And like I said, I expect Derrick Henry to be successful on the ground. I think the Titans win this one pretty handedly, probably by 6, 7, 8, 9 points. That -3 line's looking like a pretty easy bet for me. Again, you could tease that one down to -2.5 just to make sure that you get that field goal advantage for the Titans. So the last spread that I'm going to get into is the Packers -3.5 versus the New Orleans Saints. And this game is technically a home game for the New Orleans Saints, but they're playing this one in Jacksonville because the Saints, of course, they experienced a hurricane, so they can't actually go to their home stadium. This one's currently -115, and I'm going to take the Packers -3.5 to cover this one. Again, New Orleans isn't in the Superdome, so that's definitely a disadvantage for them. The Packers are the much better team, in my opinion. I don't trust Jameis Winston against a great pass rush. Trust me, I'm a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan. Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, Kenny Clark, these guys are going to get after Jameis Winston. And I know the Saints have a good offensive line, but Jameis Winston, unlike Drew Brees, holds the ball too long. He's a guy that sits in the pocket way too long, doesn't make quick enough decisions. I watched this guy for 4 years. Trust me, I know exactly how he plays quarterback. And that Saints offensive line, while it is good, is probably not going to be able to hold up against that Packers front for very long. And Jameis Winston as we know, tends to make mistakes under pressure, and that could lead to a lot of interceptions and things of that nature. And of course, the Packers have a lot of playmakers on that defense with Jair Alexander and Darnell Savage and all those guys. They can probably get some interceptions and some turnovers on the Saints offense. If the Packers can limit Alvin Kamara, I don't think they're going to be able to stop him because he's Alvin Kamara, but if they can limit him to like not a huge blow up game, then this should be a walk in the park for the Packers to win this game. So Packers -3.5. Again, I really like that game as well. I took 3 favorites in this one. I don't, want to always take favorites, but the Vikings -3 against the Bengals, Titans -3 against the Cardinals, and the Packers -3.5 against the Saints are the 3 best bets, in my opinion, for picks against the spread. And I will be personally laying some money down on these games. So my favorite over-under on the week is currently the Vikings versus the Bengals over 47.5. Now, in week 1, a lot of weird shit happens, right? We don't usually want to be taking what seems like the obvious pick in week 1 because a lot of crazy stuff happens. It's been, 8 months since these guys have played football in real games for 4 quarters. So a lot of the time, a lot of what we think is going to happen doesn't actually come to fruition. But I think the 47.5 line is really juicy because we know how much this Bengals team is going to throw the ball regardless of the game script. I think they're going to be playing from behind. The Vikings should be able to score a lot of points on the Bengals defense on the other side. Anytime you have 2 bad defenses with some good offenses operating on the other side, then you know that the over is probably likely a good bet. So I'll take the Vikings over under 47.5 with the Vikings-Bengals game. If you're looking for some DFS games to target, obviously I've kind of highlighted the Titans versus the Cardinals should be a high-scoring game. Vikings versus the Bengals, again, I'm taking the over in that game, so that would be a good game to target. And another game that would be good to target would be the Browns and the Chiefs. Obviously, with the Chiefs offense, we know that they're going to put up points. The Browns offense, very good as well. So that game currently has the highest over-under of any on the slate. I think it's 54.5 currently. So let's get into some DFS picks. And for those of you guys that don't know, I guess I haven't really announced this yet, but I have officially taken a position at Draft Sharks. Jared Smola, Matt Schauf, those guys do great work over there. So I've taken a position writing a DFS article for them each week. I'm going to be writing one article on Fanduel Picks for GPP and tournament lineups and one article on Draftkings Picks for GPP and tournament lineups. So these picks come directly from my article. If you guys want to read the full article, of course, you will need a membership to Draft Sharks to go read that because it is under a paywall, but I encourage you to go sign up for that if you want to, support any of my work. But 5 picks for DraftKings. These are my 5 favorite picks on the DraftKings platform. If you guys are playing DFS on DraftKings, I highly encourage you to get some of these guys into your GPP lineups. Now, again, I'm writing GPP tournament advice. I'm not writing cash game advice. So if you guys are playing double ups and one-on-ones and stuff like that, these guys might not be as applicable. This is for large field tournaments where you're looking to get an edge, looking to win against a lot of people. So my first pick is Ryan Tannehill. I already kind of outlined why I like Ryan Tannehill. 6,500 currently on DraftKings, 5.9% projected ownership per Pro Football Focus, which is the 6th highest among quarterbacks. I really like Ryan Tannehill this week because I think the Titans are going to be able to move the ball at will. That's really all it comes down to. Derrick Henry's going to be effective on the ground, should make for some big plays in the passing game. My second pick on DraftKings is Najee Harris, 6,300, 7.9% projected ownership, according to PFF, 9th highest among running backs. Najee Harris is a guy that can contribute in the passing game. He's a bell cow running back. We saw that in the preseason. The Bills defense is more of a run funnel defense than a pass funnel. So there's a good chance that the Steelers stick to the run game in this one. And the Bills allowed a lot of rushing touchdowns to running backs last year. I believe it was the 6th most in the NFL. So I expect Najee Harris to have a big game in this one. Again, another one of those running backs in that area where a lot of people are going to be playing other running backs. They're going to be looking at the Joe Mixons, going to be trying to spend up for the Alvin Kamaras and the Jonathan Taylors. So I think Najee Harris presents some good value there. James Robinson, another guy that I really like this week on DraftKings, 6,400, currently his price. 3.6% projected ownership per PFF, 18th highest among running backs. So this is a little bit more of a differentiation pick. Again, because Joe Mixon, Najee Harris, and some of these other guys are going around that range, you kind of have to pick your poison between these guys. But the Houston Texans are an absolutely putrid run defense. I mean, you guys should probably know that by now. They gave up the single most DraftKings fantasy points per game to the running back position, 33.6 DraftKings points per game last year for the Houston Texans run defense, and they lost J.J. Watt in the offseason. So I think James Robinson, again, we don't really know what his full workload is going to be, how much pass catching work he's going to get. I imagine, as I've said, from a season-long perspective, I don't think James Robinson is going to get the volume that he got last year, but I still think he's the lead back in this offense. And if he's the lead back in this good of a matchup, I think he's a great play at 6,400 to save a little bit of cash at the running back position. To the wide receiver position, we have T. Higgins, 4,700 currently on DraftKings, 13.2% projected ownership, which is the 9th highest among wide receivers. Again, I'm attacking this Vikings and Bengals game. I'm going to probably, and I already have lineups like this, where I'm going to be stacking the Vikings pass catching options. I'm going to take Kirk Cousins. I'm going to take Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, and I'm going to run it back on the other side with T. Higgins, because I think T. Higgins, with Jamar Chase's struggles this preseason that we've seen so far, T. Higgins to me is a lock to be the number one target, at least early in the season, for Joe Burrow and the Bengals. So the final pick that I really like for DraftKings this week is Devontae Smith, 4,500 currently on DraftKings, 2.5% projected ownership per PFF, 34th high amongst wide receivers. Again, we saw when Devontae Smith was on the field that he was the number one target of this team. When he was on the field in preseason game 2, he was the number one target. He wasn't even on the field in preseason game 3 because they benched him. They sat him along with the other starters, Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz, Miles Sanders. None of these guys played in the preseason, and every other Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver except Devontae Smith played. Jalen Reagor played, Quez Watkins played, Greg Ward played, John Hightower played, but Devontae Smith didn't because he is the number one target on this team. I think he's going criminally undervalued this week against a Falcons defense that was the single worst unit against fantasy wide receivers last year. I think Devontae Smith could have a big time game in his first game in the NFL. So on to FanDuel. If you guys don't play on DraftKings, you can go over to FanDuel. Currently, my best pick on FanDuel is Kirk Cousins, 7,200 at quarterback, 2.6% projected ownership, 13th highest amongst quarterbacks. Again, kind of already talked about why I like Kirk Cousins. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game against the Bengals. The Vikings should be able to get after him on offense. So I really like Kirk Cousins as a value play at quarterback. A lot of people are going to be playing different quarterbacks, like rushing quarterbacks in this area of pricing. So I really like Kirk Cousins as a pocket passer type of quarterback that can get 3 to 4 passing touchdowns in this game. Jonathan Taylor, another pick that I really like, 7,900 on FanDuel, 4.4% projected ownership per PFF, 18th highest among running backs. I really like Jonathan Taylor this week because on FanDuel, it is half PPR, so it favors him a little bit more than it does on DraftKings, which is full PPR. And Jonathan Taylor is a guy with not a great matchup against the Seahawks, but I think the Colts, with Carson Wentz coming back from injury, it's his first game. I think they're really going to commit to the run game, try and keep the ball out of Russell Wilson's hands, and I expect a 20-plus carry game out of Jonathan Taylor, and that could lead to a big play here and there or a rushing touchdown if they're in the red zone a lot. So I really like Jonathan Taylor at 7,900. Jerry Jeudy, 5,500 currently on FanDuel. I think he's criminally underpriced right now. Only 6.2% projected ownership according to PFF as well, which is the 16th highest among wide receivers. Jerry Jeudy, the reason I like him so much this week, it's pretty simple because Courtland Sutton is going to be shadowed by James Bradberry. That's really all it comes down to. James Bradberry is a phenomenal shadow corner, especially against a physical wide receiver like Courtland Sutton. That's exactly the type of wide receiver that he is good at matching up against. He struggles a little bit more with route runner types like Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy will be shadowed, according to PFF, by Adoree Jackson. Adoree Jackson is an okay corner, but he's not nearly the player that James Bradberry is. So I expect Jerry Jeudy to be the Broncos wide receiver that you want this week. In season-long leagues, I really expect him to be a guy that you want to be starting as well. And then Logan Thomas, another guy that I really like this week on FanDuel, 5,600, 6.5% projected ownership according to PFF. He is going to be a highly owned tight end, fifth highest owned amongst tight ends this week. But with Curtis Samuel now going to the IR, Logan Thomas can fit back into that slot role that he had last year, which led to him being a top 3 tight end in terms of targets. And now that he has a quarterback upgrade in Ryan Fitzpatrick, those targets should be a lot more valuable. So I really like Logan Thomas this week and kind of going forward for the rest of the season. I know I was kind of off of him throughout the offseason, but if Curtis Samuel is going to be out, then Logan Thomas is going to be good. That I have to pivot because that is the role that Logan Thomas had last year when he was very good for fantasy. And the final FanDuel pick that I have for this video is the Houston Texans defense. Again, you could use it on either platform, but it is lower owned projected on FanDuel. So I like it on there. 4.3% projected ownership, currently costing you $3,400. The Houston Texans defense, the reason I like it is because I didn't like what I saw from Trevor Lawrence in the preseason. I don't think he's going to get out to a blazing start to his NFL career. It's probably going to take him some time. So that could lead to turnovers, could lead to some sacks on that side of the ball. So I don't mind the Houston Texans defense. Nobody's going to think to play them because they're the Houston Texans, but the Jags offense isn't one that I'm really scared of to begin with. And I think Trevor Lawrence could definitely make some mistakes in this game. So those are all my kind of betting picks, my FanDuel picks, my DraftKings picks. Let me know if you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you want to see anything different. If you want me to talk about anything different. I kind of just went off the cuff with these, wanted to talk about some of the picks that I'm going to be making this week in week 1. I'm super excited for the NFL season to start. If you guys are super excited, if you want access to our weekly rankings to help you guys out with some start sit decisions, you guys can get access one of 2 ways. You can go to our website, thefantasystockexchange.com, and for $20, you'll get our weekly rankings for the entire season. Or you can sign up on Underdog using promo code FSE, and that'll get you access to our rankings for the entire season as well. And those of you that bought our draft guide in the offseason will already have access to our weekly rankings for the entirety of the season as a thank you for supporting us this offseason. So peace out, guys, and enjoy your weekend.
Why you need the money?